All the dignitaries and guests have arrived. So, will we start? Keep silence. The guests are arrived and they are just coming in the hall. Please keep silence. All power is within you and you can do anything and everything. He also said that arise, awake, and not to stop until the goal is reached. So we all are here to guide each other to how goals are achieved, and we are sharing many journeys. This is the 72 rehearsal we are conducting here on behalf of Aurangabad Band Association. Myself Sanjay Sangai, I will be host for today's session and I will be conducting the proceeding for the program. Now, as you know, the Aurangabad Band Association is founded in 1977 and has been functioning with the leadership of Sri Satish Ji Kagliwal, the President, Mr. C.P. Tripathi, Chairman, and the Executive Committee members are helping to conduct the program. Today's program is a flagship program of Aurangabad Band Association. In each program, we share the journey and give the guidelines. There are many questions in the mind of students, the professionals, government officers who are attending the program, and during the journey of the speaker, we get many answers. So we get very less question answer at the end of program, because while learnings are shared by the speaker, we get many answers. The challenges they have faced, the options they have used. You know, we see only the results in the media. What are the results and how the person has reached to that level. But here in the RareShare program, the entire journey and process is explained. So once you know the process, you become familiar with the process, and then you can follow the process and compare with your process. So as this process of yours get guided and you get to be processed, and during the journey and experience sharing, you get that courage which will solve your problems. So till today the 71 programs have been made and all eminent speakers, they have shared their journey. So we are taking forward today's program. For this program, first I would like to welcome all the dignitaries here in the audience. Now, I call upon Sri Nandakishore Ji Kagliwal, Satish Ji Kagliwal, today's speaker, Ullas Shurkar sir, and Mr. Sunil Deshpande on dais. CP Tripathi sir, please join the. Yes. So once again, I welcome all the dignitaries on the dais. Now I request Sunil Deshpande sir to welcome Nandakishore Ji Kagliwal. Now I request Satish Kagliwal sir to welcome today's speaker. I request C.P. Tripathi sir to welcome Sri Shurkar sir. For today's rehearsal, we have a distinguished eminent speaker, Dr. Partha Ghosh, who is world-renowned leader, problem solver, futurist and inspirable. The introduction of speaker will be there. I will not take much time. I will now request Satish Kagliwal sir to Nandakishore Kagliwal sir to introduce today's speaker.
Well, friends, I'll be very brief. I'm sure today's rehearsal is going to be the rarest of them all. Well, it is always difficult to introduce a friend because if you're a friend, then you have to say only good things. And it is indeed very difficult to introduce somebody who is as illustrious, as eminent, as accomplished as is Dr. Partha Ghosh. I have had the good fortune of knowing him for 35 years now. My apologies. I didn't want to disclose your age. They know my age. But all the same, you look as youthful, as energetic as always. That's great. Well, Dr. Partha Ghosh is an alumni of IIT Kharagpur, and we have two distinguished alumni here. Yesterday we had the Trinity, Dr. Kalro, Mr. Tripathi, and Dr. Partha Ghosh, in terms of their seniority. Well, after IIT, he has two major degrees, master's degrees from MIT, one in engineering, another in management. And thereafter, you'll be very interested in knowing this. He has been the youngest partner of McKinsey & McKinsey at the age of 28. And at the age of 32, he was asked to set up McKinsey's office in Japan. And that is quite some tribute to a person's ability. He is truly a global citizen who can straddle across the globe with ease and aplomb. You look at what he has been doing. I mean, he has been advising corporates. He has been advising countries. He has been an advisor on strategy to more than 30 presidents and heads of the states across the globe, in Asia, in Africa, in Europe. That's the type of distinguished speaker that we have today. He has been an innovator of business models, of economies, of political and social thought. Therefore, he is the thought leader in the real sense of the term. You see, a person of that stature did find time to write this book, which was published very recently. It says India towards 100, a call for reset, need for a missionary zeal, and is propagating that missionary zeal of reforms and of way forward with all his energy. That's something very, very commendable. I always cherish this friendship. Whenever we meet, well, it's a rare treat, intellectual stimulation. It's very, very enriching. And apart from being a global citizen in the true sense of the term, his heart throbs for India. He always thinks of India. He is very passionate about Indian traditions. We have been very fortunate that he was with us during Akash's wedding, and he spent 4 days fully engrossed in every ritual that you can think of. So that's the bond of friendship that we cherish. It's been a great privilege introducing you briefly, and owe her to a very distinguished speaker, Dr. Partha Ghosh. Thank you.
Embarrassed the way our very good friend Nandkishore Kagliwal introduced me. I have to live up to the introduction, so I need a lot of your blessings, a lot of your good wishes, so that indeed the way he introduced you and what I will share with you in the next 20-30 minutes would match with the introduction. So obviously it's a big challenge. I did prepare some notes, but I think I'd rather talk to you based on the spirit that he has created this afternoon or this evening. You know, when I think of India, obviously a lot of different thoughts percolate through my mind. One side, I feel extremely proud that all of us belong to a nation which has a history of more than perhaps 10,000 years. And for 10,000 years, the rishis, the sages, the scholars have thought about the universe, thought about the world, developed the concept of zero, developed the Vedic philosophy, which is rich with a lot of culture, a lot of good thoughts, a lot of understanding of the universe, which is important for not only for our country, but for the world. I'm extremely proud. On the other side, when I look at India in terms of the modern matrix, GDP per capita, Human Development Index, exports per capita, the trade balance, it is very little to celebrate. In fact, you feel quite disappointed. I'm disappointed with myself and with us that are we really playing the right role? Why we are falling behind when many other countries have gone ahead of India? As you know, the GDP per capita of this country is only $2,100. Now, some people would say there's a lot of unaccounted GDP, but that's not a good news. That means we are not accounting what we are doing, nothing to feel proud of. But let's say another 50% is unaccounted. Let's say another 70% unaccounted. Then we are talking about a country only $7,000 per capita, when countries like Japan is 50,000, United States is 60,000, China is 20,000. So there's these two sides. One side, you feel proud. We talk about Swami Vivekananda, and he positioned India on the global stage in 1893 when he spoke about Indian philosophy in 3 minutes, and he got a standing applaud. And to hold up to individuals like Vivekananda, like Tagore, like Mahatma Gandhi, I think we have a challenge that we have not been really able to listen to them with true sense of commitment, true sense of courage, the way they saw what the country could do and what we have achieved. So that's the third dimension which we have to keep in mind. So we have great leaders, we have great philosophy, but our performance is dismal. So the question is why, and that's what I thought I would like to discuss with you. Why that we are not being able to perform the way we should. And yet, there's a sense of comfort. Many times we feel we are doing well. The media says we are the third largest economy of the world. So what? We have got 1.4 billion people. To become third largest is very easy. Just put $200 per capita, it becomes a big economy because we have 1.4 billion people. And again, we have 1.4 billion people because our family planning process, which was introduced, did not work. So I think we have to be extremely balanced as to how we want to evaluate our performance so that indeed the next 25 years, as we move towards 2047, particularly the young people in this room who would be in leadership roles, many of you in the back rows would be in the front rows, and in the leadership role you'll be sitting here. And I hope when you sit here, you will feel significantly more proud, perhaps, what we feel today. And that is the challenge that we are going to talk about. The book that Nandakishore, actually Mr. Kagliwal was one of the reviewers, and he made a very interesting statement. He said it's a clarion call that touched me. It touched me. And another individual wrote, who was a director at IIT, both two IITs, and his name is Dr. Madhusudhan Chakrabarti, who was director at IIT Kharagpur and then IIT Bhubaneswar. He basically, I was touched by what he said. It is a must read for every young person. It should be a must read for every university and all the IS officers. Now the reason I feel they feel that way, because in this book I try to touch on the heart and the pulse of this nation, and that's what I'm going to discuss, building on that experience. And that book is a collection of my own speeches which I delivered between 1986, when I was in my early 30s, just about 30, till 2019, when I delivered a speech, Role of Artificial Intelligence in Development of India. So it spans a good period, 35 years, where I had the opportunity to participate in these meetings, listen to the question, learn from you, and that's how the book developed. So these are the backdrop of what we're going to discuss. So first let me talk about the world, because we are living in a global civilization. We are living in a era of globalization. We're living in a world of connectivity or hyper-connectivity, 5G, 6G, 7G. So obviously we have to understand the globe and then understand what should be the role of India. And in the process, how should we shape the country's future so that we could indeed play a very prominent role in the nation. That's how we should structure our thought process. So it's interesting that as we speak today, I must say that if we continue the path in which the world has moved in the last 50 years, it will be a very difficult world. The world needs a change. So we are at a point of inflection, and that's an opportunity for India. But only if we realize what does inflection mean. That means the curve that we have followed so far, I mean the world has followed so far, that would not be a straight line projection into the future, it would be a different curve. And when there's a different curve, it is often an advantage for the group, if it's a company, for a society or for a country to find the new path. Because we are less locked with the current path because we are behind, so we could create the new path. That is the basic argument I like to put forward. That means each one of you have to think differently. If you think this is what Elon Musk is doing, that's why we should do this, it will not work. You have to go ahead of Elon Musk. You have to go ahead of the companies like Microsoft to define the next company of the 21st century. So it is going to be a tough task. And that's what I think. I personally feel we are ready to follow, only if we can change our mindset. So when we talk about the world, why I think we are at the point of inflection, I think there are 7 points to keep in mind, which I'll touch on very quickly, because each of the points I can spend 7 hours, so you have to give me 49 hours to touch on each of the points, which will obviously, you don't have the time. I have the time, because I believe we need a missionary zeal to create the next wave of development for our country. The first, I made some notes, I will look at it so that I don't miss out. The biggest change that we are all facing today is the climate change. And why did the climate change occur? It is the last 500 years of development has created a process which we cannot sustain anymore. So that's an advantage for us, because we did not participate in the development as much as did the United States, Europe, or Japan, or even China. So we have to look at this as a possibility only when we are prepared to think of the world in new terms, not in terms of what the Western world has followed in the last 500 years. Then we are losing out. We are just trying to catch up, and catch up towards a direction which is not going to be sustainable. Am I understandable on that point? That's a very important point. Secondly, which is a bit sad, we saw the collapse of socialism with the collapse of the Berlin Wall in 1992. And obviously it was the end of, quote unquote, as socialism was known in much of the world. Capitalism became more popular. Russia tried to adopt capitalism. China followed a very interesting path. They kept the socialistic spirit, but within that they planted capitalism. But clearly now we are at a point, particularly when I look at the United States, capitalism is being questioned. So socialism has collapsed. People are asking, will capitalism work? Why? Because there's clearly an increasing gap between rich and poor. The wealth gap in the United States is really staring. When I went to the United States first, as you heard, I was at MIT in Boston, Massachusetts. That was a long time back, 1976. The country looked significantly more prettier. Like wealth gap was not visible. Today you go to any city, wealth gap is significantly visible. So obviously capitalism is not working, though we have more trillion-dollar personalities like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and many others. And mind you, they have done a great job. They did not inherit wealth, they created wealth in one generation. All of them started with very minute amount of money, but they created because they were creative. But even then, there's a huge gap. That's the second problem. The third problem, which I was discussing yesterday and today, because of the human migration that is taking place from Africa to Europe, from Middle East to Western Europe, even in North America, people coming from Latin America, people coming from India, China. People are becoming increasingly conscious of their race. There's a rise of nationalism. So as much we are talking about globalization, nationalism is strong. So obviously there will be a new kind of balance. I don't know what it is, but Trumpism is not Trump-led. Trump is created by that spirit. Trump took advantage of it. And same thing we are seeing in Hungary, same thing we are seeing in Italy. Italy, as you know, the recent election, far right has come into power, and everyone thinking, who are we? We have to protect ours, we have to keep away from other people. Now that spirit is on the rise. Even the Brexit has that element in it, though current Prime Minister has got Indian heritage, and I hope he would last, but who knows, because there is definitely that feeling is there. So that's there. I hope it is temporary, but something that we have to keep in mind. The fourth one is even more serious perhaps, and they're connected, the geopolitical tensions that we see emerging. There are more tensions today than the tensions during the Second World War. And that's something to keep in mind, because when Vivekananda gave the speech in the first Parliament of Religions, I think it was in 1893, and his speech was September 11th. And that particular conference was organized by some thought leaders from Boston and Chicago. It was organized in Chicago, and the purpose was to bring harmony into the world. Harmony of religions, harmony of faiths, towards more enlightened development of the civilization. Now, after that session in 1893, there was a session in 1899, I don't know, many of you may be familiar with, in Hague, which is in Western Europe. And that conference was again to resolve or avoid conflicts of the world. But see what happened. Right after the conflict, the Belgian-Congo war took place. 8 million people died in that war, 8 million. And soon after that, there was another conference on how to avoid these conflicts. And nothing happened. In fact, we saw the First World War, when 14 million people lost their lives. What happened after First World War? We created the League of Nations so that there will be no more wars. League of Nations did not work. We had the Second World War, and the United Nations was formed. And what has happened since then? Another 20 million people have died in small battles here and there. And now we are having the Ukraine-Russia war. Forget what's going on in the Middle East, forget what has happened in North Korea, South Korea war, what happened in Vietnam, and you can go on and on. So obviously, as you could see, these tensions, we have not learned how to resolve, and tensions are continuously rising. In fact, I have plotted recently a map, which I call the hotspots of the globe, and there are at least 14 hotspots, and each hotspot is powerful enough to lead to the Third World War, including Ukraine, Russia, but if you look at North Korea, South Korea, the South China Sea between China and Taiwan, and the tensions between China and the United States, and the world is in a state of confusion. Now, obviously we are part of the world, we should be concerned, but at the same time India has a role to play, which I'll come in a moment, but let me finish. The other problem that we should be all concerned about, there's a shrinking resources. If we all follow the path, the Western model of development, forget the climate change, but the resources, if you need lithium, we are talking about EV cars, but there's limited supply of lithium. We're forgetting that. So limited supply of raw materials, which we can take up the earth, is finite. Obviously, the earth is finite, but our appetite is becoming infinite. How to match that infinite appetite with finite resources is a challenge that we have to think of. So obviously there's an opportunity again, if only we can think in new dimensions. Then of course, the social media. Social media is a powerful media. Any good news spreads very rapidly, any bad news spreads rapidly, any fake news spreads very rapidly. And what happens is the abuse of the media is left and right. You do not know what is right, what is wrong. There's a lot of news out there, a lot of opinions. And typically the bad news or the fake news spreads faster than the good news. And that is another danger that we have to deal with, particularly all of you are carrying iPhones. Now, how do you spend the time? Even when you go to restaurants, you sit in front of each other, you don't talk, but you're doing social media with someone else, though you're sitting down with the person in front of you. So I think these are some very important problems that we have to deal with. But the most important problem today, which that's the last point I want to touch on, that the institutions, the government machineries are losing trust. In the United States, democracy is losing its trust. And democracy was perhaps the latest creation of how to form governments. But even that process is losing trust. Then the question is, what is the next crazy? Or what is the next ism? Those are the opportunities we are faced with. So in short, I want to make a point. The world is in a serious state of confusion. We are at a point of inflection. We have to move forward with a new model in every dimension. How we want to structure economic systems, business models, government models, political models. In every dimension we have to think new. Now, thinking new for a country which is already locked in, like the United States, Japan, Germany, they're into the system. They're thinking of how to get out of it. They are the ones who are taking the leadership role of talking about ESG, which is, we talked about it yesterday, but environmental sustainable goals. There are 17 of them, unfortunately, and many of you do not remember what those 17 are. But since this is a university, I could begin a quiz now. How many of you know those 17 ESGs? See? So that's a problem. Now, this was declared by United Nations for the world. Each one of you are responsible to make these 17 ESGs successful, but you may not know what those 17 ESGs. Now, I don't blame you. I blame the United Nations. But as soon as you come up with so many numbers, you do not remember. But if they came up with 5 points or 3 points, this is what we have to do, and really embed that in our DNA, we would have seen a different world. So as you could see, much of the challenges of the future would be take on the problem but reduce it to the fundamentals. So there are 2 or 3 points that you could take away home and start doing things differently. So I would talk about those takeaways now. What does it all mean for us? So let me now dive into India. India, I think, is a great place where we have 3 advantages. I always used to say, Nandkishore Kagliwal has heard about it before, which I will repeat. So I hope I will not bore you. But I always mention India has got 3 fundamental advantages. And I call it the Vedic advantage, diversity advantage, and time zone advantage. Keep them in mind, 3 advantages: Vedic, diversity, time zone. Now let's see what it means. The Vedic is obviously the rich knowledge that we have. Then again, I would like to request you, many of you have read the Vedas, or you know the Vedas, you go to the temples, you recite the mantras, but what are the 3 takeaways? What do you really connect with? So that's, again, I feel we have a role to play to reduce it to 3 points. To me, I was very lucky, growing up in Calcutta, one advantage is that you grow up under the tutelages of people like Swami Vivekananda, Ramakrishna, Tagore, Aurobindo. And so naturally you imbibe a lot of that spirit. And so I was exposed to the discussions in various Vedanta centers and Ramakrishna missions, and I reduced it to 3, thanks to my parents. The first one is the harmony with nature. Vedic philosophy fundamentally in all the Vedas, if you read, the basic message, harmonize yourself with nature. And I'll come to that, what does it mean? The second one humanity. We are part of the same Atma. What does that mean? And third, which Vivekananda used to talk about a lot, is service to humanity, so that you understand in each every individual there is God. And if you really believe that, India should not be 100th in corruption. We are number 100. There are 99 more honest countries than we have. Now, again, I do not want to debate whether it's 100 or 99 or 98, but we are not in the top 10. We should be number 1. If we really believe in that harmony with nature, we should harmonize with each other. Why should I not trust you? And why shouldn't you trust me? But as soon as we discover excuses and find ways to not represent myself honestly, that trust gets broken. And obviously that does not lead to the harmony that we are talking about. So India has to rediscover this Vedic philosophy, not just reciting the mantras, but practicing it. And I call that the behavioral capital. Your behavior should represent that we represent Vedic philosophy, which is what? Timeliness. Are we honoring each other's time? If I say I'm going to meet you at 6 o'clock, I'd better meet you at 6 o'clock. Why should I keep you waiting? I saw that being practiced in Japan in every moment. Just in time is a concept which came from Japan, but it is an extension of Vedic philosophy. Naturally bowing down. I've never seen two angry Japanese. Even the people differ, they say, please wait, let me think. When they're differing very violently, but they do not express the violence. That's Vedic philosophy. Do not express your anger. That's what Arjuna and Sri Krishna's dialogue in Gita is all about. But we are not doing that. We get angry very easily. Arrogance. I know it all. Vedic philosophy talks about you have to learn continuously. Japanese call it kaizen, continuous improvement. Are we doing that? You know, we build beautiful buildings, soon you will see cracks, wires coming out, pipes coming out, and we adjust. But I have seen, some examples of departures. When I go to Nand Kishore's home, I see a continuous improvement in the green. I'm talking about the green side. It's possible. When I go to inside Ramakrishna Mission, outside you see the dirt, but when you go inside the mission in Belur Math, you see that. So it's possible, but we are not taking interest. So that's the one advantage, Vedic philosophy. The second is the diversity. You know, people talk about Silicon Valley all the time. And many countries, Germany particularly, Japan, Italy, France, have analyzed Silicon Valley because they realize they've fallen behind the United States. Every new product comes from the United States. Every new product. And largely either from the Boston area or from California. And that too, Silicon Valley, the northern part around San Francisco area. Why? People think it's diversity. Multiple thoughts together come together, and in the process new ideas are born. But that diversity advantage only happens when you are willing to appreciate the differences between people, the diversity. Now, when I come to Bombay and I ask people, how many of you have visited Assam Bank? Are you interested? No, they're backward. Who says they're backward? Actually, Assam had the first oil fields in Digboy. Why should you make a judgment in any state, backward, forward? Every state is your state. But look at, are we taking advantage of diversity? Yesterday, Mr. Kavliwal was talking about, and I think Mr. Carlo also talked about, the language. You know, if someone is living in Maharashtra, he's from Tamil Nadu, he should have natural interest in learning Marathi, as much as a Marathi living in Bengal should have a natural interest in learning Bengali. Lata Mangeshkar is to speak perfect Bengali. So you had these kind of personalities. Hemanta Mukherjee used to speak perfect Hindi. So I think many ways I feel the India that we had 20, 30 years ago knew how to appreciate diversity as we do it today. As much as the world is becoming insular, I see some kind of insularity developing in our country. So diversity advantage is something that we have to take advantage of, because that is one of, I think, the most prized asset of the country. Because every language has got, which we can bring together through artificial intelligence, we could speed up. We are talking about innovation with Satish, with you, this productivity of innovation. How to speed the productivity of innovation. Extremely important. And that is how do you increase the productivity of integration of diverse thoughts. We could have an advantage. And the time zone advantage, which is my favorite, which may sound a bit funny, but I will share with you what I mean. You know, 70 to 80% of India could not participate in the Industrial Revolution. They're still living lifestyles which was perhaps 500 years ago. I'm talking about the people in the villages. They have just gotten electricity, still they do not have the sanitation, forget air conditioner and fans they cannot afford. But isn't that an advantage? Because they are more ready to absorb the next model, as you and I am, because we have become dependent on the air conditioners and the fans and the electricity. But 70% of India is ready because they are a blank sheet of paper. But if we are ready, that we will create products and services which they can afford, is new, is green, is climate friendly, and how to create a new lifestyle which is economically more advanced, so that India creates the model for the world. And we are in an excellent position to create the new model for the world, as did Europe 500 years ago, thanks to people like James Watt, steam engine, then Thomas Edison in the United States. They created this world for us. But that world is not sustainable. We need a new world, and we are in a position to create that if we can meld Vedic diversity, time advantage together to come up with the integrated strategy. So one point I was discussing with Ratan Tata once, it was almost 5-6 years ago in Bombay House, and he asked me, Partha, what is new? He always asks me when I meet him, so what's new, Partha? I said, there's nothing new, but I feel some of the old values we could renew with a new perspective. And that's where I was talking about, that if these three advantages we take advantage, keep in mind, every business house could start thinking of what could we innovate which would lead to the creation of the next S-curve. While we are doing the current one, I'm not saying get rid of what we have, because that's not possible. We have to make money, we have to be practical, but yet we want to be transformational. They're not in conflict with each other. You see what I'm saying? This is a very important transition India could uniquely play, because we have 70% people, maybe 65, but there's a huge population. That's close to 1 billion people. 1.4 multiplied by 0.65. Billion people market is there who are still a clean sheet of paper, and provide them the comfort with the current systems offer, but with a different system. That's the business opportunity. And as you succeed, those businesses would become brands, global brands, which people would embrace. And I think the world is ready, because in the United States the green movement is very real, and that's a great opportunity. So finally I'll come to the last point. Am I taking too much time?
No. How about time?
Oh, time advantage. At the time advantage, I just said that we have a clean sheet of paper and to create the business model. So am I clear with you? The Vedic advantage is clear, that we have the treasure, but we have to practice it. And what to have to practice, I will quickly, I made a list in a speech I delivered in Houston recently, and I will share those 7 points, because the title of the speech was, which I was a keynote speaker, Hinduism in North America. So I said, I'll not talk about Hinduism, I'll talk about Vedicism and relevance of Vedikism in shaping the 21st century civilization. But I said that we have the treasure, but we do not have the behavior. Unless we could express the Vedikism through our behaviors, as the Japanese do, we will not be able to take advantage of Vedikism. It would be just mantras and sastras and feel good about it. We feel good. But feeling good is not the purpose. We have to practice it and let others feel good as they see us, as we feel when we go to Japan. Mr. Kaul, you will remember, every moment in Japan is a great experience, because people, the way they behave, the way elegantly they stand, the way they bow down, everything. So I've got a list of 8 points I'll quickly touch on. Firstly, I see in every company, in every institution, in every university and every college, we should practice what I call 360-degree discipline of excellence. 360-degree discipline of excellence. We very easily quote centers of excellence. But then what does it mean? Excellence to me is that we know how to honor each and every detail of an activity every time with full reverence to divinity. Each and every moment is a gift of God, and we have to treat everyone's time with full divinity. Even when you write the dots and the I's and stroke the T's, it has to be excellent. We have to bring that, then only India would be competitive. I often wonder, why is India's trade balance continued to be negative since 1950 to today? A poor country's trade balance, if it has got the right strategy, is positive. Because we are poor, our wages are low, we should be able to produce products which the world would buy. Which China achieved, Japan achieved, Korea achieved, Vietnam is doing, Bangladesh is doing, but India still suffers from negative trade balance. It's our problem, because we are not performing. And one of the things we have to do is discipline of excellence, 360 degree, what I mean in every dimension. Second one, work ethics. Work ethics. Now, what does work ethics mean? There are 2 ways I like to look at work ethics. One way to look at work ethics, if I'm generating the work, how to design the work so that you will appreciate the way it has been designed. That's my responsibility. But when you take on that work, you honor the work with the fullest reverence to that piece of work. We say work is temple, work is worship, place of work is place of to worship, but we don't practice it. The typical attitude is how with minimum input, I'll get the maximum output. If you're a businessman, you want to put minimum dollars to get maximum output. If you are working for someone, you want to put in minimum input of time or energy or thinking to get the maximum output. We have to stop that. And I think each one of us is responsible. Each one of us. And I was thinking about it because for the last 3 nights, by the way, I hope I'm looking okay. I didn't sleep much because I've been traveling, jet lag and this and that. When I was about to sit there, I was really sleepy. But given the subject I cannot afford to be sleepy. It's my country that we are talking about. But work ethics to me is never to never go back to sleep. The third point is honesty and trustworthiness in every interface. Every interface should be honest. Then I can trust you. What is capitalism? People often misunderstand capitalism. Capitalism is basically trust in each other. I give you an order, you invest in a factory, you manufacture a product with the hope, because I've given an order, when I receive the product, I'll pay you. That's how capitalism works. Now, if I made the order, you do not trust me, you really don't make the investment. But I was expecting the components would come so I can manufacture the car, but the components didn't come because you felt Partha would not pay me. Or you have made the component, I didn't pay you on time. My business model suffers. So that is again I find is missing, the trust factor. We have to work on it. Clean habits. I was talking about yesterday, actually in Mr. Kagliwal's home. My wife is from Japan, and I'll tell you a lot of things I learned from Japan. My wife, I spent a lot of time in Japan. One thing I learned when I have twin boys, that when they're 2 years old, my wife never made their bed, but made sure in the morning that when they got up, the bed is made perfectly, never dressed them up, put the clothes in front of them. They had to put on their shorts and the shirts and whatever, sometimes in winter, the jackets and the socks, and put on the shoes at the age of 2. That is a tremendous discipline on her part, not to express her emotions, but discipline of watching that it's happening till it becomes a practice. So one thing you would notice in all the developed countries, I noticed, they know how to make their beds. Now think, how many of you make your own beds? Typically, if you're rich, the servants are making your beds. If you're poor, you do not have the luxury to think of how good the bed would look. Because typically 5 people are sleeping in the same room. But in Japan, 5 people sleep in the same room, but they have tatami room. They roll it up, put into the shelf. You have to be clean. So I think clean habits is a must, because if we want to move to a zero waste society, we have to develop clean habits so that we are not wasting resources and maintaining the recycling. Then, there's a huge list I can go on, the social consciousness and spirit of public service. Now, some of you obviously have, that's why you're here on Saturday evening, instead of watching a Hollywood or Tollywood movie or Bollywood movie, sorry, we are here. Now, we are here because we care. And what else we could do? I enjoy participating in such meetings. Mr. Kagliwal knows I spend almost 28 hours a day around the world talking about such issues, because all the problems that I talked about earlier in the world is true in the United States. So I'm beginning a movement in the US, in Europe, but definitely I want this movement to take on more in India, so India could provide the lead. And that's why we have established an Academy of Leadership, which we will also do in the North School of Business and Technology. The seventh point is humility. I think we have to embed humility in our education system. Humility means that we keep our egos outside, divine within. In our case, it's the other way around. A lot of egos inside, divine is in the temple, we go and worship the temple. But I would like to worship the divinity within me, and to worship the divinity within me, we have to take the ego outside. It's just the reverse of what we do. Now, if we can do that, our ability to learn would increase. Humility means you can learn. I feel our country is not learning fast enough. Very important. In a world which is changing very rapidly, our ability to learn would determine whether we are competitive or not. In a knowledge-intensive world, knowledge is the strength, and knowledge is changing rapidly, which we have to learn. And then, of course, the final point I would like to talk about is the faith in divinity within. We are talking about, Mr. Kagliwal was talking the other day in the evening, that we do not think big. That's what you said, right? Now, why? That's true. And think big doesn't mean that we have to build up $1 billion company. Think big means to me that I will design something which the whole world would appreciate. And that needs confidence. So I feel in every university, we have to cultivate the spirit of self-confidence. That is something which is genuinely lacking. We went to IITs, we were taught a lot of good things, but we were never taught the divinity within and how I could confidently attack the problems of the world. Elon Musk moved from South Africa to United States, Canada, started a company called PayPal, then he started a company called Tesla, SpaceX, Boring, and then he has got neural networks, and recently bought Twitter. Each of them is shaking up the world. Now he's shaking up Twitter. Why is he doing all that? And he didn't start with a lot of money. He came as pretty much like me. He came from South Africa, I went from India. But he's shaking up the world. Going to the space, You've got new concepts of travel in space, new concept, a company called Boring, new concept of mass transportation. Tesla, of course, you know, is a new concept of car. And now he has got neural links where he's going to put chips in your brain. And he can control you. The chips will be connected. And he has got Twitter network. He's so smart. Look, I could see it. People ask me, Partha, how do you see it? Where is he going? I see one common denominator in all the 5 activities he's taken. That he will control the minds and make all of us very energy efficient and take you to the space, to Mars. Now, why can't we think that way? You know, so I think we have an opportunity, and I think finally I'd like to end with only one point, Sanatan Dharma. Because at the end of the day, you know, our power as a country, not because Vivekananda said, not because Tagore talked about what you quoted Tagore yesterday, Mr. Kagliwal, mind without fear. Mahatma Gandhi talked about be the change. Vivekananda has got so many quotes, amazing. He was only 39 years old when he passed away. But Vivekananda could become the model for all of us. Now with these 3 individuals in our sight, their quotes, I think we have to really understand where their power came from. They take on some big challenges, particularly Vivekananda. Mind you, when he delivered his speech, he was actually 26 years old. Many of you in the people closer to your age. And 3 minutes, he shook up the audience. Because he understood the Vedic philosophy extremely well. The Vedic philosophy to the root, and of course he was very lucky that Ramakrishna was his guru, who inspired him. And I think when I analyze the life of Ramakrishna, I hear in him the true spirit of Sanatana Dharma. And what is Sanatana Dharma? Which is our own asset. It is understanding the eternal truth. And if the eternal truth is something that we can connect with, we can commit to, I think we will be able to solve the difficult problems of the world where we started today, the 7 points that I made. And we have the 3 advantages. If we can connect them, then we will create a country which is not only competitive, it will create a model where the world would look up to how can we become like India. Because the United States is no longer a model. The United States has mismanaged itself in the last 25 years, and I talk about it openly. And I've given a lot of speeches where people from White House have heard me, and they appreciate what I say. Because my analysis is simple. When the way US has dealt with the Ukraine-Russia crisis, it failed. It created inflation. Russia has benefited more because oil prices went up. Is making money with China and India. It created a different kind of a tension in the whole of Europe. Now, Western Europe is losing trust in the United States. Within the United States, there's a split. So I think time has come for India to believe it has got something to offer to the world. But not just say we have got something to offer, we have to craft a strategy, both at the business level as well as the philosophical level. And that is the symphony, I call the symphony of competitiveness that we have to create. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for giving me this great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for enlightening us. So starting from the global situation, then taking up to the India and the Vedanta areas and to the Sanatan Dharma. Now, we'll take 3 or 4 questions maximum, and I would like to you to ask question very clearly. So, here, please.
Can we start some students?
Okay, we would like to start. Prefer the student to ask the question first. So we expect question from the students, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for such a great talk. But I would like to ask you that you talked about the diversity, and what I feel that we as Indian talking more about the strong walls instead of respecting the diversity. We feel that ki, I am great and my next family should also follow me only. That's what we are talking about, the strong walls. And you talk about the innovation, but I feel that ki, we are talking about formulas of success. You do this, you do that, and then you will get a success. We are not talking about innovation, I feel, and you are focusing on it. So
Thank you
I
very
want to
much.
ask about it.
I think you are absolutely right. I fully agree with you. I mean, the first point, to me, diversity means that we appreciate each other. We appreciate someone younger than me, someone older than me, irrespective of age. We appreciate, as you just told me, whatever is more worthwhile. Knowledge. Whatever is more worthwhile or whatever is more valuable to society. So, yeah, sorry. So when I'm speaking about diversity, I really meant that being able to integrate multiple views. You know, we have got many isms: Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Islam, Christianity, many languages, Maithili, Assamese, Bengali. You know, in Bihar we have got different languages. In Bihar itself there are a couple of languages. Then we have Punjabi, Gujarati, Marathi, Tamil. You know, these have to be viewed positively. But then you have to look at each of these languages with tremendous respect. Not feel that, oh, I'm a Marathi, I've got a superior language. Or I'm a Bengali, I've got Tagore, so I'm superior. That has to disappear. Tagore is India's Tagore, as much as Mahatma Gandhi is India's Mahatma Gandhi. He's not from Gujarat. Every person will be from some place by definition, naturally. But he's an Indian. And I think that diversity, how to blend it together to create some strategic advantage, we have not done that thinking. So I think charity begins at home. Please do it with yourself, and I will participate in that dance with you.
Sure. The second one, innovation versus formula oriented.
Yeah, very much so. I think one thing I noticed, I was talking this morning at MGH University. You know, when I first went to MIT, the first thing that struck me in the classroom, whenever a teacher was asking, a student was asking a question, however stupid that question would be, and some of them were indeed stupid, but the professor was always respecting the question. He did not say, oh, how come you're asking such a stupid question? His point was, that's a good question, but let's see how we can solve your question. So he would raise a question in return, and in the process a dialogue gets established between you and me. And in the process perhaps I would be able to align your thoughts with my thoughts. In India what happens often, the teacher is always right, the student is always wrong. And we are trying to correct him, and that I think we have to stop. And that's where I was also a bit cautious about. We are talking about Gurukul these days. The Gurukul, if the thinking is all the professors Guru and everyone else is disciple, then we are doing disservice to the concept of Gurukul. Gurukul is a dialogue of enlightenment. Sometimes a student can educate me by the brilliant question that he or she has raised, and sometimes I as a teacher could perhaps also educate me. I'm underscoring the term perhaps, because I think that kind of uncertainty we have to build in our dialogue. In India, I think often we talk about a bit too much of arrogance. I've heard, I am sure, Partha, we are at crossroads. I've heard that in 70s, we are at crossroads. I've heard that in 80s, we are at crossroads. I've heard that in 90s, and I'm hearing today. We're always at crossroads. Even a person like Abdul Kalam, who we all respect, in his book, which he published, India 2020, many of you have Vision 2020, he published the book in 1996 with Rajan, Mr. Rajan. And in one place it's very nicely written, by 2020, India would be a super developed country, if not earlier. So these kind of statements have haunted us. Of course, we all want to be. I do not want, in my book, I never say India in 2047. We can't. I'm saying to India 2047, if we do all these resets, we could become ready to become like Japan in 1945 when Japan took off. So my dream in this book, which Anand Kishore knows, that how to reach the point 2047 where we are ready to take off. Because there has to be some fundamentals that we have to build in the foundation, which China did. You know, China, unlike, both of us went to IIT, but China did not focus on IITs. China focused on primary education, healthcare, water, sanitation, and now they have the top universities. Tsinghua University in the top 10. IITs are not in the top 200. But Tsinghua, Beijing University, and the top 10 universities of the world. But primary education is so good, that's why you see people, Chinese people picking up gold medals in Olympics. They're all over. Look at the companies that have created ByteDance, TikTok, Huawei, Hawaii. There's so many companies which has got global names. It all happened very quickly because the primary education was very strong. So we have to work on those. But it's never too late. I'm not discouraged, by the way. I think India is a big experiment. Last 75 years was a big experiment. Some worked, many did not work. But if we are willing to learn what did not work, even the negative points are good points. Positive points are, of course, good points, but we have to find the curve, to find the right pattern to take India forward.
Any question from the students backside? Yeah, please.
Hello, sir. Hello. As you say, or also I am believing in that, the when particularly, but beyond that, in these particular days, the different type of political and religious agenda are spreading their roots in Indian minds. So, as per youth or as per national development, that type of issue is how much harmful for the nation and national development?
Yeah, absolutely. If you think of philosophy through the lens of religion, particularly for a country like India, it could be harmful. But if you look at the philosophy from the point of view of development of the human conscience, development of being a good citizen, it could be very helpful. So I think when we're talking about Indian philosophy or Indian ethos, we are talking about how to be a good citizen of the country, of the world, taking advantage of the knowledge that is resident in our philosophies. Yes. So I think we are not talking about religion. Religion is very personal. Now, if I want to worship Sri Krishna, that's my choice. He may choose to worship Ma Kali, that's his choice. Someone else wants to worship Muhammad, that's his choice, or Christ. That's a little bit, it should be at the individual level. It should not be at the para level. In Bengal, we have a concept of para. What we call in Maharashtra? The locality. In a locality, it should not be even a locality issue. It should be a personal issue. But as a country, we should have 10 guidelines that India is defined by the eight guidelines that I read out, for example. So I think that is what I'm talking about. And fortunately, a lot of the Vedic philosophy, which is absolutely right, is not Hinduism. That's why when they asked me to talk about Hindu philosophy, I said only one departure, we'll talk about Vedic philosophy. And Vedic philosophy is the knowledge resident in the Vedas. And Vedas were not religious texts. These were knowledge of the universe as seen through the eyes of sages and rishis and thought leaders of that time.
Good evening, sir. So basically, I just wanted to ask that some time back we spoke about the world shutting its doors, kind of shutting its doors on socialism, and also capitalism not exactly working as it was supposed to. And we also had the example of Sri Nehru and Mahalanobis model of the trickle-down theory and everything that not working out for us. So personally speaking today, when as so-called a young entrepreneur, that we look at the business models that we are as of now, how do we exactly proceed with it? Because what happens is that we define ourselves as Indians, we define ourselves that we are balanced in between somewhere, but inclined towards the right. We are inclined towards the capitalism, is what we call ourselves. But how do we move forward as of now when we say that there are so many examples right here in our city where people have been investing from their own pockets to develop so many things around our city? Like, so I definitely am not in the place to speak about it, but how do we move forward? Because some people say it is that तुम तुम्हारे जेब से खर्चा करके बर्बाद कर रहे हो. If something like that comes to other people's minds. So how do we move forward, sir?
A very good question. Well, firstly, let's look at capitalism very carefully. Please have a seat. The way the capitalism got defined in the last 350 or 400 years is based on how Adam Smith defined it is to power to unlock. Yeah, sorry. Oh, there she goes. Can you use that mic? Maybe I should. That's better. Then I can see everyone. Yeah. I cannot answer questions holding mic in front of me, so that's why I did not join politics. But let me try to sort of give. It's a very good question. See, the capitalism, the way it got defined by Adam Smith, was that the power of self-interest. If you allow every person to pursue his interest in an organized fashion, market develops, and the invisible hand of the market allows the development process. And it worked quite well because in the early stage of industrial revolution, the name of the game was specialization and repetitive tasks, mass production. But as the knowledge revolution started taking place, it is not only muscular work, but the brain work, this power of self-interest, and if you combine that with Charles Darwin's thinking the survival of the fittest, what does it tell you? That you are self-interest to be fit, and as you become fit, others disappear, and ultimately survival of the fittest means there will be one species or one individual which will survive. And that's exactly what is happening. If you look at the way wealth is getting created in the United States particularly, very few people are becoming very rich very rapidly, even if they don't want to. And Elon Musk did not start all this business to become rich. He wanted to make some statements, have fun. He's basically having fun. But in the process, he takes his company public, the stock prices go up, he becomes rich. Now, what I feel we have to be careful about, when we are talking about the survival of the fittest, it is becoming self-interest first, and in the process, we are losing social consciousness. Karl Marx on the other side said that as people produce commodities, people will get commoditized. People get commoditized. That we can dispose, we can buy people, get rid of people as we want, which means we are not valuing humans. And he challenged that. So now I think we have to think of the next ism, which you can develop, and I'll tell you the formula. I have a name for that. I'm glad that you brought it up. In the book we call it cellularism. And what does it mean, cellularism? That you have small activities, cells, which allows you, the point she was making, self-expression and innovation, but in a form of a network. So each cell is talking to each other. So that creates the social consciousness. So that is certain elements of socialism. But each cell is individual expression of your self-expression, your talent. So I think that interactivity is what is required. So I think you should retain the freedom to think. That's what capitalism celebrated. But what capitalism couldn't do is the concentration of power which was happening. It could not distribute that power. And concentration of power is dangerous because then you are supporting one political party with money. So politics also become very concentrated. A few individuals become very powerful, and in the process democracy gets compromised. And that danger is there. So you have a very important role to play as a young man.
Maybe the last question.
There are many questions.
Good evening, Professor.
Yes, please.
Sir, in your talk, we heard a lot of appreciation to the Japanese style of management, like continuous improvement, just-in-time inventory. I'm sorry that I'm asking this question. I also heard that you are married to a Japanese. Now, what is the style of management followed at home? Is it the Japanese style, the American style, or the spiritual Vedic style, sir?
Very easy to answer. Yeah, that's very good. The good news is I spend very little time at home. So it's limited time that I have at home, I let my wife run the show, but that makes it easy. So point number one. So that way it is Japanese style, as I talked about the children growing up. I appreciated that even they started going to school using public transportation at the age of 4. And not only that my kids did, every Japanese kids are doing, whether they are coming from a very rich family or a very poor family, they know how to take the subway. The subway system is designed such a way that it's very safe. They go to sometimes, like my children used to go to school which was almost 10-15 miles away in a subway. Change the subway once. So I appreciated that because as I was watching Japan, literally in my day-to-day life, in the corporate life, the government, the way the government and the country, the way people cross the road, stop at the red light, I said, I see the Vedic philosophy. So maybe my connection with Vedic philosophy deep inside was in my heart, and I saw that expression every day, every moment in Japan, whether in my home, in my workplace, or on the streets. So it was not a challenge at all for me because I appreciated Vedic philosophy and I saw it being celebrated and I was learning. So that's why I came up with this term, behavioral capital. We talk about intellectual capital, we talk about physical capital, but behavioral capital is how do I dress, how do I manage my poise, how do I speak, how much do I bow down, all these little details. Doing things on time, sitting elegantly, taking notes, all these things together defines a personality of a society. And that's where I learned a lot from my life. I will let Akiko know about it. Maybe you can send an email.
We all learn, but we don't get it.
We don't agree.
Hello?
Yes, please. There's one. Yeah.
Sir, first of all, thank you very much for this good and very insightful address. And I also thanks the Nathwadi School and Devguri College for arranging this very important and helpful session for all of us. Sir, my question is related with the Vedic philosophy. So you mentioned a lot about the Vedic philosophy. And India has a strong treasure of the Vedic philosophy. So how our institute and business school are looking at it? Yes.
Yeah.
What efforts government or schools or institutes are taking to use that treasure of philosophy?
Good, very good question. Unfortunately, not much. But with the Modi government, and I'm not connected with any party, by the way, let me know. I'm not in politics. But I had the fortune to interact with the political leaders of this country from 1986. I want to give you a little bit of history. I was first invited actually by Ratan Tata in 1986 when he was the running committee of CII called the Strategy Committee, which was appointed by Rajiv Gandhi. So I was invited on September 6, 1986 in Ashok Hotel in Delhi to give a presentation on future of India. Mind you, I'm talking 1986, so I was almost 40 years younger. He's now 22 minus 4. So 40 minus 4, 36 years younger. So I made a presentation and Rajiv Gandhi was supposed to attend, but unfortunately he got stuck in Harare because India was the head of this third world movement. So the meeting was in place of Rajiv Gandhi, we had L.K. Jha. You've heard the name. L.K. Jha was Governor of Reserve Bank of India, advisor to Mrs. Gandhi, very powerful personality, with Abid Hussain, Montek, V.K. Krishnamurthy, such individual, Nath Karni, who was the head of IDBI, Mrs. Nath Karni, D.N. Ghosh, State Bank of India's chairman, all these personalities were there. Now, the question that you raised did come up that point, that what does it mean? I think LK Jha raised this question. That because I touched on that point, India's treasure of Vedic philosophy, but that time I didn't know much. This was just about when I was living in Japan. So I basically talked about that until and unless that we can reduce the Vedic philosophy into 3 or 4 very visible principles and introduced in every school, it would be difficult. Because if we just leave it to mantras and Sanskrit, which is a difficult language, we will recite it perhaps, which we do, but we never practice it. So how to practice Vedic philosophy, I think, has to be embedded in every school, and unfortunately it's not. But Modi government, what I see, is at least revived the interest in, I hope he calls it Vedic philosophy, but in name of Hinduism, if we look at the Vedas, I think that could bring some new spirit. So I think it's high time that we bring the philosophy part in the curriculum of not only business school, engineering schools, across different universities. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing this Academy of Leadership, which is basically a fusion of Vedic and Western philosophy. In fact, I would like to be part, I'd like to see both at MGH and this university, we can open a cell of Academy of Leadership. You know, 1 year ago I launched a movement, they call it Partha Ghosh Academy of Leadership at IIT Kharagpur, because both of us come here from IIT Kharagpur alumni. And IIT Kharagpur, I don't know how many have visited, is a place of pilgrimage. Have you, anyone visited IIT Kharagpur? So you know, it's next to Hijli Jail. Hijli Jail is very important. All of you should read the history of Hijli Jail. Many people lost their lives. They were executed by the British fighting for independence. So when Jawaharlal Nehru asked Bidhan Chandra Roy, who that time was the Chief Minister of West Bengal, where would be that place? And Bidhan Chandra Roy, without thinking, talked about it should be in Hijli. Because Hijli jail represented basically the sacrifice hundreds of Indians made to fight the freedom against the British, and that's where we are located. So I thought if we want to develop a new leadership model, it has to be IIT Kharagpur, and not for Kharagpur, it is for the country. It has to begin someplace again. So we want to establish an Academy of Leadership cell at Nath School of Business and Technology, which would be at MGH. If you want to establish it here, we'll do it, because that will bring the leadership movement of this country. We'll cover a lot of the points that we have discussed today. New type of leaders who are confident, who understand on one side the Vedic philosophy, on the other side the Western philosophy, and bring the two together.
Thank you, sir, for answering the question in details and clearing the doubts. Now, I request Chairman AMA, CP Tripathi, sir, to sum up the session.
Many thanks, Partha, for delivering such a wonderful lecture, wonderful talk. We all know Partha is the other name for Arjun, and who learnt Gita from Lord Krishna. So here is a learner of Gita, Vedic philosophy, deeply into it. In Bengali, Parth will not be pronounced as Parth, it will be pronounced as Partho. So he is Partho. The 3 points which he put forward, that is Vedic philosophy, diversity and time zone. Now, this is something which is a great take home that we should carry with us. And if we have understood what he conveyed by this. I think that was the summary of his total talk. Details he has given, telling you the scene the world is today. He has put entire thing in terms of politics, in terms of economics, in terms of conflicts, in terms of everything. He has summarized the world scene and has told us that we are at inflection point, and if we do things differently and if we do things properly, we can create our own path, and instead of following a particular curve, we should follow an exponential curve to reach the point faster than others have reached. So thank you very much, Partha, for giving such a wonderful talk, and I'm sure most of us will carry home a lot of things from you, particularly the Vedic not being mixed with so-called today's religion, dharma. In fact, dharma is different from what is being interpreted everywhere. So all these things we should do away from what is being talked about in politics. If we understand it properly, what is our philosophy, what is our dharma. Incidentally, you may have forgotten, at IIT we were taught philosophy. Yeah, we were given, there was a subject of philosophy, and there we learned Prakriti, Purush, Sankhya philosophy, all that. Though I came from Brahmin family, but first time I was exposed to philosophy was at IIT Kharagpur, and the religious place you talked about. My first class of mechanical engineering was held in IIT, in Hijli Jail building. Yeah, when you came, things had changed quite a lot. But then this is the kind of feeling that he carries, that he studied at a place which is a place to be worshipped. And this is what makes him great. Thank you very much, Partha. I've been told by my convener to tell you that we have another rare share on 2nd of December. The speaker is Mr. Pankaj Dubey, a thought leader, a person who has talked all over the country in various IITs, in various forums, invited by Government of India. He will be here on 2nd, and we'll have the 74th rare share here in this place. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Taking the learning onwards and upward, declaring the next rare share. Aurangabad, we are waiting for many opportunities, whether it is a business, whether it is a entrepreneurship. All of this is required to be supported by good business and good business school. We have good opportunity at Aurangabad. We have the North School of Business is coming up. I request the director Ailavadi to explain shortly about the North Business School, the courses available and the opportunity available to the students here.
All the dignitaries present on the dais and the august gathering present off the dais. At the outset, my sincere apologies for having come late because of the navigation problems. The navigation device took me to the wrong direction, so I was the rear end of this institute and it took me time to head towards this. Extremely sorry. Now, I take this opportunity in introducing what North School of Business and Technology is going to do with reference to the corporate professionals. As it has been already informed that we are a new age business school wherein we have at UG programs Bachelor of Computer Applications and Bachelor of Management Studies, and 2 PG programs, Master of Management Studies and Master of Computer Applications. These are programs which are fully integrated in terms of business, technology and entrepreneurship, because that's the need of the hour. Now apart from that, we are trying to position, in fact we decided already, the plan is already on, that we have to do something to contribute to the business which is there in Aurangabad. Because to my mind, any business school without any kind of relationship or tie-up with the business organizations is simply a coaching class. It is not a business school. And since Aurangabad is kind of undergoing a paradigm change, a transformation because of DMAC corridor and Government of India's efforts to make it a Aurangabad industrial city, there is a radical transformation which is happening and will continue happening in the near future. And there is going to be a gap, very kind of a gap which is going to be very difficult and challenge to meet that kind of a supply of industry-ready professionals. So what is it that is driving this change? As we all know, industry is going to undergo a radical transformation, a radical paradigm shift, the way businesses are being managed, the way the new products are being developed, the way supply chain is being managed, the way there's an explosion of data, and how do we manage this explosion of data. Everything is posing a great challenge in front of a business organizations. And that new technology, there's a digital technology, has also created new risks. For example, cyber security risk, it becomes a very important issue for any business organization. So there are various challenges that currently the business organizations are going to face. And the drivers could be, or we can say catalyst could be the technology, 4G, 5G, Python, AI, ML, IoT, augmented reality, virtual reality, so on and so forth. And also the changing demographic proportion of the working professionals, especially the Generation Z. Their aspirations are different. It's very difficult to engage them for a long time. Employee engagement becomes an important issue. And these are the various issues that the entire business is going to face. And therefore, we have felt a strong need for the working professionals to reskill and upscale themselves wherever they are working, because the opportunities are bound to be there, and along with these opportunities, challenges which has to be seen as opportunities are bound to come. And as I said, Nath School of Business and Technology is a multidisciplinary institution having new age courses, programs, whether it's in technology or business or entrepreneurship. We are now designing a program suitable for the corporate professionals. There could be different models. There's a 24-month executive MBA program in consultation with Mahatma Gandhi Mission University, and there could be 11 months PGP, postgraduate program for working professionals. There could be 3 or 4 months short-term programs on various topics like, say, supply chain, digital marketing, it could be wealth management, so on and so forth. So we shall focus only on 3 or 4 programs initially, and as we go along, the new programs will be added. It could be in technology also, certification artificial intelligence, certification enterprise risk management. The enterprise risk management is becoming very important these days. Apart from the traditional financial risk and operational risk and marketing risk, cyber risk becomes an issue, a great issue for each and every business. So these kind of certificate programs, short term, like 3 months, 4 months kind of programs, we are going to design. And we have the faculty members drawn from the prominent business schools and technology schools across India. And the credentials are outstanding, and we are confident that we'll be able to design these programs for working corporate professionals. But without this guidance, support of the industry, I don't think we can do this. So I'm here to seek your support, guidance, and whatever inputs you can give, we would not only welcome it, we would really be highly thankful and obliged, because that's how I see any business and technology school to provide, or I would say harnessing knowledge for solving business problems. Unless an academic institution can harness knowledge for solving business problems, the entire education becomes incomplete. So we are going to design these kind of programs. These could be weekend programs, could be Monday to Friday. That the modalities will be worked out in consultation with the corporate professionals. I would I'm trying to think of how do we go about. Perhaps we can create a core team of think tank, making a group of senior corporate professionals across various sectors, be it manufacturing, be it service, be it IT, whatever. We come together, a kind of a core think tank, and we'll sit together and draft out course curriculum in detail, which can be customized to various sectors, be it automotive industry or pharmaceutical industry or whatever. Apart from offering standardized courses, which will be of course offered in consultation with corporates obviously, the customization would be definitely done, because that's the way forward if we want to succeed. So as I said, that we are poised to enter into a era of executive education, which is the need of the hour, especially in this region. And as I understand, there is not many business schools or academic institutions where the corporate professionals, working professionals, can reskill themselves, upskill themselves, currently available in this region. And most of people go outside Aurangabad, maybe in Pune, Mumbai, etc. And here will be an opportunity for each one of the corporate professionals working here to be here and undergo that kind of training programs. And as we all know, learning is the new pension, which the CHRO of Samsung has said. We also believe firmly in that. And to end, of course, it is not in my mandate. I just take 1 minute. Dr. Partha Ghosh has talked about humility. Now, I just like to share my thought on humility in one single sentence. To my mind, humility means thanking God and praying, oh God, I'm thankful to you for having me to come this far. There are people outside over there who are much more superior to me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for explaining in details about the courses, the connect of industry along with the business school and need of time of Aurangabad to have a business school. Now it is time to felicitate our speaker. I would request Satish Kagliwalji sir to felicitate today's speaker. Thank you, sir, for enlightening us today here. Now it is time to conclude today's session. I would like to express the vote of thanks. First of all, I would like to express special thanks to today's speaker for coming down here in India, that too at Aurangabad, inaugurating a business school and then coming to the AMA session. So thank you very much, sir, for enlightening with this new idea. What I touch upon and we commit to from the entire audience here is we are treasure of many good things, but what about behavior? So we all commit you that our behavior will improve it, and it will start from everyone. We are not depending upon anybody for behavior. So definitely we'll commit our behavior as our treasurer and what you are taught. So your time will be helpful to us to do this, and you will definitely take the name of India as a option to the world that coming up with something good and something big. Now I would like to thank the AMA entire dignitaries for taking their time, coming and arranging this session, and also would like to thank all of you here to be present here in the hall and getting into the deeper thoughts and listening to the speaker. Lastly, but I would like to thank Devgiri Institute of Management and Sri Shurkar sir for offering the premises and their entire team for supporting the event. Thank you.
एडिट करून टाकून द्यायचं बॅलन्स करा अरे खुर्च्या खुर्च्या बाजूला एक मिनिट थांबा